Courtney Pierce is a fiction writer living in Milwaukee, Oregon. Stitches emerged from her own magical history, which encompassed a 20-year career as a sales and marketing executive of the Broadway entertainment industry. She was transformed by the magic of fiction from a theater seat in any one of 32 cities for touring Broadway shows. On the other side of her transition from corporate life, she's had the wonderful support of the Attic Institute, Willamette Writers, Pacific Northwest Writers Association, and Indigo Publishing to support the development of her career as a novelist. Stitches is also a showcase for her other passions: music, fine arts, international travel, ancient history, and sewing exquisite fabrics.
You ready for a little magic? This is actually a 3-book series, and I'm reading tonight from the second book, and it's a baby boomer literature trilogy. My characters, Jean and Spence Collins, find the magical artifact at an estate sale, and it changes their lives over 3 books. And in this second book, it's all about a painting that they've inherited from a B&B from a woman that they made immortal. And so they brought this painting home. It's of a little boy dancing in the woods. It's very small, and they've taken it to the Portland Museum of Art to see what it is. But it's already exhibited some magical properties. Palmer Norquist held open the door to one of the museum's consulting rooms. The light inside was flattering, both to human skin and to the art. The relationship Spence had with the Arts Council gave them a red carpet of direct access to the curators in all of the departments of the museum. "How are you both?" Palmer said, shaking Spence's hand. He turned and gave Jean a hug. "I haven't seen you since the fundraiser last August. We've had a busy fall. The holidays were packed." Jean shifted her eyes to Spence. "But we're excited about our latest acquisition. This is something we've inherited." "I hope you can help us with the painting in here," Spence said, thumping the art case. "Jean, do you want to tell Palmer what you found out?" "The artist is a mystery, but the piece originally came from Rome several hundred years ago. We do know the history to that point from a family member of the original owner." She hesitated before continuing. "The painting's been in private ownership of only 2 families, the Meany family in Rome and then given to the Gaines family in Virginia in 1881. We brought it home from the house we inherited, the old Gaines house in Richmond." "Well, you certainly have piqued my interest. Don't keep me in suspense." Palmer had that look of a pirate getting ready to open a treasure chest from a sunken hulk. Spence unbuckled the case and opened it. Palmer stepped forward but didn't make a move to touch the painting. He stood stock still. "Do you want to see this out of the case?" Spence asked. Silence. "Palmer?" Jean pressed. She couldn't quite read the expression on Palmer's face. Awe? Skepticism? Palmer seemed to jump from his thoughts. "Yes, please. Carefully." The elastic straps thronged as Spence lifted the painting out of the case. Palmer's eyes trailed the piece to the felt-covered table as if the canvas might explode. "What is your goal?" Palmer asked. "We need it cleaned first, and then we want to know who the artist was," Jean said. "Do you want to sell? Possibly make a donation of it to the museum?" Palmer gave her a sheepish smile. "Kidding. I thought I'd give you the option." "You wish, Palmer. One step at a time," Spence said. "Beautiful frame. Let's take a closer look." Palmer pulled a headpiece with a magnification light from a shelf below the table. Leaning over the painting with the focus of a surgeon preparing to make the first cut, he lowered his enlarged eyes to within a few inches of the surface. I'm not sure. The brush strokes are fine, without a doubt, but inconsistent. Not all the same technique. Italian. No, maybe Dutch. From the complexion of the subject's skin and his bone structure. The eyes, yes, are definitely Dutch. Interesting combination of detail. Old, very old. Late 16th or early 17th century, I believe, from the patina and aging of the paint. The light and shadow, chiaroscuro technique is impeccable. Egg and olive oil, maybe linseed oil. No signature of the creator, but not unusual. Palmer inspected the design on the wood. The frame is not as old as the painting, mid-1800s. The old leaf is exquisite. Palmer gasped. Something pricked my finger, like static. How odd. The boy speaks. Palmer laughed, but seemed nervous. Can you excuse me? I need to consult with someone. Make yourself comfortable. Palmer trotted from the room and closed the door. Jean turned to Spence. What do you think he meant? I wonder if our dancing boy got yacky with Palmer like he did with me. Palmer's hands shook as he picked up the office phone and called Franco Michelli at the Northwest Institute of Arts. Only one person could be trusted to tell him without question what this painting was. The execution had all the qualities of something important. He wanted the piece in his collection, no doubt, but he was more curious about who painted it. Franco, Palmer here. Can you send Dylan to the museum? Immediately, please? I need his opinion on a painting that was just brought in. 17th century, I think, Italian or Dutch, but I'm not positive. The clients are here now, they're waiting. Have Dylan come as soon as he can. Call my cell after you talk to him. He set the receiver in the cradle. Palmer double-checked to make sure his cell phone was charged and spoke aloud to himself. Many paintings speak to me, but this one, and what on earth was that static? Jean's antenna for art was on full alert. Art was in the air. The painting had the smell of history. She basked in the vision she'd seen and also about Charlotte's comments. Italy, hundreds of years. Mystery pulled at her, pushing her accelerator from 0 to 100. Spence's face registered it too. He had that same starstruck gaze as when they were in the Prado in Madrid, the National Portrait Gallery in London, and the Accademia in Florence. And she had the same thrill as when she saw Lincoln's portrait at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. Every one of the U.S. presidents showed the weight of responsibility to lead a country, but none like the details of Lincoln's. She cried when she stared at the sole of his shoe, with the leather separated from the toe. It spoke volumes about the man. Some art moved her, and moved Spence in the same way. Sorry, I had to get a pad of paper and call a colleague, Palmer said, stepping back into the viewing room. He placed the paper and pen next to the dancing boy. Franco Michelli at the Art Institute said Dylan is on his way. I must warn you, though, Dylan is not what you think. Don't judge his abilities by his appearance or his youth. He's highly intelligent and incredibly talented. I have a doctorate, and even I'm intimidated by the depth of his knowledge. Eccentric types are cool, Spence said, turning back to the painting. Let me tell you, I've seen my share in the rock art and album collecting role. His face changed from amusement to thoughtful. Being human, that's what this picture is about. A boy full of hope in a lively moment of no disease, no greed, and no hunger. He's full of music. Jean turned and stared at Spence with wide eyes. His ability to pop out insightful pearls of wisdom never ceased to amaze her. That, and this painting has a quality I can't put my finger on. This is as good as anything we've seen in museums in Europe, Palmer. Her face shifted back to the canvas. And its magic, she added in her mind. I agree. Qualities in this that are unique. Qualities are in this that are unique, Palmer said. The light emerges from the canvas, making the subject appear natural and three-dimensional. Difficult to achieve, by the way, even for a master. Also, the skin on the boy's face, it's so... Palmer rubbed his fingers together, soft-looking. All three of them went quiet, waiting. door to the small gallery opened. In walked a kid, a soaking wet kid with long dark hair, shorter on one side than the other, purposeful in its cut at an odd angle. A wet tendril hung over his right eye. He reached up and tucked the strand behind his ear, revealing angelic eyes like a Cupid doll's. The skin on his fine boned face was porcelain white and flawless, as if he had never been touched by the sun. Whiskers were few. The blank canvas of his face bore no expression. He raised his hand as the only gesture of greeting. Spence studied the young man as he took off his dripping wet jacket and set it next to his knapsack by the door. Worn keds squeaked as the wet rubber gripped the varnished wood floor of the gallery. With no acknowledgement of Palmer, Spence, or her, the young man walked right up to the painting, put his hands in his pockets of his jeans, and stared. The air was charged and still for a moment, and then the kid lowered his eyes to within 6 inches of the canvas. Jean heard herself breathing. Spence started shifting, self-conscious, from one foot to the other as though he'd sipped too much espresso. Palmer pulled at the single hair on his left eyebrow. "This is Dylan Davis," Palmer said in a barely audible whisper. "He's deaf." He handed Dylan a black felt-tip pen. Dylan uncapped it without taking his eyes off the painting. Pulling his own pen from his breast pocket, Palmer leaned over and the pad and paper and wrote, "Dylan, this is Jean and Spence Collins. The painting is called The Dancing Boy." Dylan dismissed the note. He only had eyes for the oil-based boy on the canvas. Jean stared at Dylan's hand when he took it out of his pocket, the hand of an artist. Her pulse raced in anticipation of what he would write on the paper. He scanned the canvas, inch by inch, with the pen poised, ready to give the ink a voice. With the hint of a smile, Dylan lowered the pen to the lined paper. The graceful fine bones of his creamy white hand moved as if the first notes of a Mozart concerto. Dylan wrote the words in perfect calligraphy-like penmanship. Caravaggio, Dutch, maybe Italian. Can I clean it? Dirty. Please? Palmer raised his eyes, seeking approval. Who's Caravaggio? I've heard of Caravaggio, but Jean said, thinking she must have skipped out on an important art history class in college. Not who, Mrs. Collins. Oh, what? The Caravaggisti were a group of painters who were followers of Caravaggio, or M to his closest confidants. Artists flocked to Rome between 1600 and 1610 just to watch the man paint and learn his technique. I'm sorry to say, it all ended in violence. Caravaggio was forced to flee Rome after he murdered a man, ugly and tragic. He was gifted, no question, but a gifted thug. Spence's stunned expression superseded his attempt to stay cool. She kept a calm exterior, but wanted to jump up and down with the confirmation that their little painting may be important. We have to trust someone with this, Spence. He obviously knows more than we do. I feel the same way. Spence turned to Palmer. Please make sure he takes good care of it. Palmer leaned over the pad and paper and wrote, "Yes, you can clean it. Do you know the artist?" "Not sure. I suspect, but want to spend time with it before I say." Palmer raised his eyes with an anxious smile. "Well then, we have to wait. This is exciting. We may know exactly who it is very soon. Now that I have more clues, I'll do some research myself." "How do we know it'll be safe?" Spence asked. "The painting won't leave the building. Dylan can work here in the museum. He's a focused and intelligent artist. If this were my painting, I would trust him. And my life, I'd trust him with that too. I'll start tomorrow. Here," Dylan wrote and gave the pen to Palmer. "Studio 3. I'll have a key card made for you." "Thank you," Jean wrote. She extended her right hand to Dylan, compelled to touch the hand that so captivated her. As soon as their fingers met, Jean felt a raging current of energy shoot down her arm, not up as she had experienced before. Her head shot up against the stream. She locked her eyes on Dylan's. As he grasped her hand, the expression of surprise on his face told her that he experienced it too.